Welcome to Dawn of the New Earth. My name is Morgue, and I'm an ex-Christian revealing hidden knowledge to create a new earth. And today, we are continuing to explore Satanism. Specifically, we are taking a look at satanic sex spells and curses. It's going to be very interesting. We're going to be exploring these ideas as well as the difference between greater magic and lesser magic, high magic and low magic, and the consequences that these things have. It's going to be very interesting, and we're going to get started right away. It's going to be good. But as always, I want to remind you to please hit like and subscribe. And if you want to help me reach more people with this information, become a member here on YouTube or on Patreon. If you hit the join button right below this video, you can see all the different perks you can get. You can get access to all of our members only videos. There's a new one every week. There's probably hundreds of them by now. You can get access to our Discord server where we have live study sessions every Sunday. And just check it out. It helps out a lot, and I appreciate it. I want to remind you that my fourth book is available for pre-order. My fourth book is called Teleocracy, Creating the New Earth. And it's all about how to create a new planetary civilization based on the understanding that we are interconnected. And so this comes out October 10th, but it's available for pre-order. If you're new to my work and don't know where to begin with book 1. That's Neogenesis, Dawn of the New Mind. That's where to start. The link to where you can get my books is in the description of this video. And in the description of this video, you will also find a link to my Spotify channel where you can give me a follow there. And it's a great convenient way to listen to this information. Okay. All right, my friends. So all that out of the way, let's get started. Today, we are talking about satanic magic. Now, we talked particularly, we're talking about sex spells, curses, rituals, and their form. Now, last week, we explored lesser magic. Today, we are going to explore greater magic because that's what these things are entailed in. So what is the difference between greater magic and lesser magic? I explained it a bit last time, but let me give you a quick rundown. So in Satanism, this is specific to Satanism, greater magic has to do with ritual and emotion, whereas lesser magic is more about using psychological techniques and manipulation to get what you want. So that's what we read about and discussed last week, manipulative techniques, psychological techniques in terms of lesser magic. Today we are talking about greater magic, which involves using ritual and emotion to create some sort of change or get a desired result. Now, I want to make something really clear that this is different than high magic and low magic. These are different concepts. High magic and low magic is not the same as greater magic and lesser magic. And I just want to throw that out there because I think sometimes people confuse these terms. And I just want to make that clear. So what is high magic? High magic has to do with enlightenment and achieving unity with the divine. Whereas lesser magic is more about getting things that you want in practical situations like love, money, success. So I have a definition here. Let me read you one of the definitions just so we can be very clear. So what is greater magic? This greater magic are formal, ritualistic ceremonies performed with emotional intensity, and it's designed. Oh, I'm so sorry. That's greater magic. Scratch that. Let's define high magic first, okay? High magic. High magic is spiritual and philosophical, aimed at personal transformation, enlightenment, or union with the divine. It's about self-knowledge, raising consciousness, spiritual growth, and the practitioner seeks to connect with divine forces or higher planes of existence. It involves ceremony, it involves ritual. Now, lower magic is like practical magic, and it can also involve ceremony and ritual, etc. But it's usually less strict. Not always though. But the main difference is that it's focused on practical worldly goals like love and health and money or protection. All right. So high magic, it's about transformation, enlightenment, union with the divine. Low magic is practical. It's about love, money, health, success, protection, etc. Okay. So in terms of Satanism, Satanism is more about low magic or practical magic. It's not really about high magic. Because remember, high magic is about enlightenment, transcendence, raising consciousness, spiritual growth, union with the divine. And Satanism is all about the here and the now, the flesh. They deny usually any sort of like spiritual existence or continuation of the soul. So Satanism is more about practical magic. Love, health, money, protection, like we're going to talk about today, sex, curses. And this can be in terms of greater magic or lesser magic in terms of Satanism. Greater magic involves rituals. Lesser magic is more about like psychological manipulation. So I just want to make that clear. Hopefully that's not too confusing, right? High magic, low magic is not in terms of Satanism. Satanism is in terms of greater magic and lesser magic, which is more aligned with low magic if we were to make some sort of connection. Okay, so with that out of the way, though, let's get started here. Let's talk about the actual topic. So in the Satanic Bible, LeVay says here are 3 types of ceremony incorporated in the practice of satanic magic. So here now we're talking about greater magic that involves ritual and ceremony and emotion. It's not so much about, lesser magic, which is in terms of psychological manipulation. LeVay writes, a sex ritual is what is commonly known as a love charm or spell. The purpose in performing such a ritual is to create desire on the part of the person whom you desire, or to summon a sex partner to fulfill your desires. So, according to LeVay, a sex ritual is one of the types of ceremonies in satanic magic aimed at attracting a partner in terms of sex or love. Now, and by the way, I'm not saying, I'll give you my opinions on these things and what I condone and what I don't condone or how I feel about this stuff, because ultimately, I'm not personally a very big fan of satanic magic. I think that it's interesting the way that LeVay describes it can help people get an understanding of what it is. But ultimately, it's very much about like manipulation and what I would consider to be, very, very negative. But I'll explain why in a moment. But so 3 types of satanic ritual. A sex ritual is one of them. And LeVay says the second type is of a compassionate nature. So we have something more with like kindness involved. The compassion or sentiment ritual is performed for the purpose of helping others or helping oneself. Health, domestic happiness, business activities, material success, and scholastic prowess are but a few of the situations covered in a compassion ritual. And then, and LeVay says, that's kind of nice. But LeVay says, it might be said that this form of ceremony could fall into the realm of genuine charity, bearing in mind that charity begins at home. Basically saying like, well, so you can, do things that benefit the self. There's nothing wrong with benefiting the self. It depends how you do it. If you benefit the self, it's not at the expense of others, that's fine. But if you're benefiting the self at the expense of others, that's when it becomes a problem. And I think one of the issues that I have with satanic magic, and you'll perhaps see this as we go forward and read more about it, is that there are times and places for certain things described. But LeVay does it in such a, I don't know, almost like with such a, he's channeling the satanic archetype, which is the rebel. So he's being very like rebellious about it. But it's almost done in such a way where it's kind of like a rebellious teenager, where it's kind of irresponsible. In the way he describes it, it's kind of like if you are teaching people how to use magic, they need to be able to understand how to do so in a responsible way. And to have all this kind of like snarky, rebellious stuff in there would be fine if it was balanced with, also positive things. But it just isn't. And one of the reasons for this is that kind of goes along with Satanism, and that Satanism is very much about the self, because Satanists are ultimately, LaVeyan Satanism is ultimately an atheistic and materialistic philosophy, meaning it believes that reality is material, that we're just here in the current moment, then we die, there's nothing at all. And so we might as well have fun while we're here. So it's not real big on helping others because it doesn't follow from the philosophy that that's a important element. Now, just to contrast, like in the Neogenian system, helping others very much follows. In the Neogenian system, it's about helping the self and helping others simultaneously. It's about both. Why? Because we aren't an atheistic materialist philosophy. We know that we are literally God as an interconnected network, and we are eternal, so we persist after death. We are on a path of evolution. And so in these terms, helping others is logically entailed in the system itself, because helping others is ultimately helping our absolute self. It's what we are, because we're all just different reflections of one another ultimately. So for me to help you is ultimately helping the us, the all is what we are. So basically what I'm saying is that helping others in the collective, in addition to the self, is logically entailed in the Neogenian system. Now in Satanism, helping others is not logically entailed in the system. That doesn't mean that there aren't Satanists that help others. I've known a lot of Satanists that are really nice people and help others. I'm just saying it's not logically entailed in the system. The system doesn't imply that should occur logically speaking. That doesn't mean someone who is a Satanist might not be a kind, generous, nice person. They very much may be. That's just not entailed logically within the system, philosophically speaking, of Satanism. And you can see this bleed through in their magic, which is very manipulative. So anyway, so let's continue here. We've talked about 2 out of the 3 types, one being a sex ritual, the second being a compassionate ritual, and third being, LaVey says, the third motivating force is that of destruction. Now we're getting into curses. This is a ceremony used for anger, annoyance, disdain, contempt, or just plain hate. It is known as a hex, curse, or destroying agent. Again, satanic magic, very harsh. And so what's interesting about this is I want to make a note about something. So LaVey's take on magic is a little bit, it's not very defined very well, because ultimately when we look at Satanism, it seems to be very atheistic and materialist, and it seems like it denies a spiritual or metaphysical aspect to existence. There is no divinity. You should just live life while you're here, and when you die, you don't exist anymore. That seems to be what more or less LaVeyan Satanism implies. However, when it comes to magic, that can still follow in terms of the fact that this is known as like materialist magic, where you're using things like psychology and manipulation and emotion to affect change, rather than there's some like actual metaphysical substrate. But at some points, LaVey seems to imply that there could be, but he's not very clear on it, which is a little frustrating because he's not very clear. Sometimes he seems to imply that there isn't. Other times it seems like he leaves room for that there might be, which is, in my opinion, should be more clearly demarcated, more clearly defined. But the reason why I bring this up is because LaVey is essentially talking about how emotion and belief can be effective in terms of magic. And LaVey says here, and I'll let you know why I'm bringing this up. LaVey says, if religious faith can make bleeding wounds appear on the body in approximation to the wounds supposedly inflicted on Christ, it is called stigmata. These wounds appear as a result of compassion driven to an emotionally violent extreme. Why then should there be any doubt as to the destructive extremes of fear and terror. The so-called demons have the power to destroy in a flesh-rending manner. So, what LeVay is essentially saying is that fear and terror are powerful. And he's using an example of stigmata. He's saying, and stigmata, if you don't know, stigmata is basically people who say that through prayer or whatever, the wounds of Christ appear on them. And so they'll have like blood appear on their palms or something. And LeVay is saying, if compassion can make that happen, if compassion can make stigmata occur, then how, so should fear and terror also be able to make things occur. And this is why I say, right, like, it doesn't really, because obviously if you're doing stigmata, this is implying a metaphysical aspect to reality, but LeVay is not very clear. He seems to deny metaphysical aspect, but is now kind of implying that it is the case with stigmata. But the reason why I bring this up is because, look, stigmata is not real. And that's one of the things we have to be very careful when we start talking about magic and what magic is, because ultimately, my channel is all about logic and reason. And immediately when people think of magic, they immediately think of like woo-woo, crazy Harry Potter stuff, people levitating or thinking that they can summon demons and all that. But when you really understand what magic is, you really realize that it's a powerful form of psychology. It's about psychology. It's about understanding the different archetypes that reside in your mind. It's about making the unconscious conscious. It's about connecting to the source of existence. It's not about, summoning a demon to go do what you want or something like that. It has, in other words, there is a rational explanation behind it all. Doesn't mean it's always a material explanation. Reality is a mental reality, but there is a rational force behind everything. Now, the reason why, and I'm bringing this up because we have to be careful, because when you start reading about magic, it can make a lot of people go crazy because they can't tell what's real and what's not real, what's fake and what's not fake. And so when LeVay is talking about stigmata is not a real. So I for years studied the techniques used by fraudulent psychics, fraudulent mediums, fraudulent faith healers, fraudulent miracle workers, etc. And stigmata is just frauds do that. It's not real. I'll give you one example of how one way that stigmata can be done is if, however the case may be, if someone's having a conversation with someone, maybe the person says, hey, I'm going to, engage in prayer or something and cause stigmata to occur. And the people obviously see, well, your hands are fine. There's no blood. There's no wounds, right? There's no wounds. There's no blood there. And what one could do is to simulate stigmata is, first of all, you misdirect them. So you engage them in conversation or something. You talk about, this is, I'm going to now talk to God or something. You distract the person in some way. Maybe you're describing what you're going to do. And with your other hand, what you do when no one is looking is you get a, and when I'm saying you, I'm being the theoretical person who is doing this. Don't do this. Okay. Don't do this. But what a person would do is get a, what's it called? There is a pen for diabetes testing. And so it's a pen. And when you press it, very, very quickly, a small needle pokes you. Happens in an instant. It just pokes you real quick. So you reach in your pocket, hit the pen real quick, and you do it on, let's say, one would do it on this finger. And then so what you do when no one's looking is when you close your hand, well, guess what? That finger lands right in your palm and now it's all bloody. And so you can now, they just saw that your hand wasn't bloody and now you redirect your attention here and the blood will start to flow and you'll open your hand and there'll, be a lot of blood in your palm. Now, once again, don't do this. Don't try this. I'm just using this as one example of how someone could simulate stigmata. But anyway, there's all sorts of stuff like people who can, bend metal with their mind and read people's minds, etc. There there is a fraudulent, illusory mechanism behind all of these things. So anyway, it's just a little side note. I know we're getting a little off track here, so let's continue. But one thing I want to mention here again with Satanism is that LeVay here says, basically LeVay is saying, hey, if you're cursing someone, it doesn't matter if they believe in curses or not. And I just want to read you this quote. LeVay says, listen with benign assurance as he laughs at your magic. So if someone thinks your magic doesn't work, they're laughing at you. Don't worry about it. Listen with assurance, LeVay is saying, knowing his days are filled with turmoil all the while. If he is despicable enough, by Satan's grace, he might even die laughing. And I get it. He's being rebellious and kind of like tongue in cheek, kind of funny, but he's also kind of serious at the same time. And to me, this is kind of irresponsible. If you are seriously teaching someone how to use magic and you're saying like, oh yeah, they might die and I hope they do. It can put people in a very negative mindset when it comes to these sorts of things and lead to very negative results. But let's continue here talking about this. And so LeVay is now talking about magical ritual and the ingredients used in the performance of satanic magic. And one of the ingredients is desire. So LeVay is saying desire is important in satanic magic. Why? LeVay says the first ingredient in the performance of a ritual is desire, otherwise known as motivation, temptation, or emotional persuasion. If you do not truly desire any end result, you should not attempt to perform a working. And so now we can start to get into a glimpse of how magic as described by Satanism or satanic magic works. So yes, if you are doing a ritual, desire is required, because if you don't desire the result, that result is not likely to occur. And again, it's not because you're manipulating magically, something to happen. It's about psychology, and you're putting yourself in a certain mindset. So let's say that you have a goal to, all right, let me give you an example here. You have a goal, you want to make money. So you're going to do a ritual to make money. Some people think, oh, I'm just going to do this ritual to make money, and I'm just going to start getting checks in the mail. That's not how it happens. It's what a lot of people try and sell you on. It's like, the law of attraction is real popular because it's just like, oh yeah, just think about wealth and abundance will come to you. No, that's not how it works. Now, a lot of people do think that that's how it works. And how LeVay thinks that these things work is very nebulous. He doesn't completely ever describe how he thinks it works. He's just like, oh yeah, it does kind of. But how it does work is, so like I said, you're not just going to think about money and checks are going to start coming in the mail. If you're truly doing these things to affect change, what you do is you think of, okay, well, how is it that I'm going to make more money? And so let's say you decide, well, to do this, let's say a raise at work is your goal. You can pick any number of goals, becoming an entrepreneur, inventing something new, whatever. But let's say, for example's sake, that it's to make, you want to make money. How? By getting a raise at work. And so in doing a ritual designed to help you get this raise at work, you would require a genuine desire to get that raise and to implement that emotion into the ritual. Why? Because the ritual, ultimately what magical ritual is about, and this is now my opinion on it, not necessarily what LeVay may say or anyone else may say, but it is about tuning your mind to help you get that which you are seeking. So in other words, it's embedding within your subconscious that, hey, this is important to you. Getting this raise is important. And so when you have that real desire behind it, that's reinforcing it in your psyche. If you don't really desire it, then your unconscious is not going to flag it as very important. If you don't really, it's going to be like, this isn't, it's obvious, this, they don't really desire it, so it's not important. So it's not going to be flagged as something that's important. But if you do flag it, but if you do desire it and doing a ritual, further, it's communicating to your unconscious, hey, this is important. Because your unconscious, this person is doing all these things because, dream analysis is a good example. If you don't have very many dreams, what helps in having more dreams is keeping a dream journal. So every time you wake up, immediately write down in your dream journal anything that you can remember every time you wake up. And when you do this for a while, you will start to have more dreams and more vivid dreams. Why? Because your unconscious at first says, hey, dreams aren't very important, so why remember them? And so they get erased from memory. However, if you start recording your dreams, your unconscious, it tells your unconscious, hey, this is important for some reason. And so it flags it as something that should be remembered. And so similarly, in ritual, this is what's happening. Your unconscious is flagging things as important because you're doing this ritual. Your unconscious is going, oh, wow, this must be important. There's this emotion of desire. There's all this, elaborate, things that they're doing. It must be important. And so it gets flagged as important. So what this means is, like, for example, if your desire was to get a raise at work, this means that you are having your unconscious work in the background to help you achieve that. That doesn't mean you can just sit on autopilot and it's just magically going to happen. No pun intended. But it means now that your unconscious is becoming aligned with your conscious desires, and you're having your entirety of your being aligned towards achieving that. Just like, if you want to remember your dreams, you have to get your unconscious to work with you. And you do that by keeping a dream journal. If you want to help amplify a goal of yours, one option is a ritual where you're flagging that as important. So now your psyche is helping you achieve those things. And this means just throwing this out there. Maybe you're always late to work because you sleep through your alarm. Well, now your unconscious realize, hey, this is important. And so it's going to wake you up, and you may find it easier to get out of bed in the morning. And this can ultimately be a factor in you getting to work early or on time, and ultimately lead to your getting a raise at work. So do you see, hopefully this makes sense. I'm trying to show how ritual and ceremony, etc., can be a powerful force. And it's not about, summoning gnomes or angels to fly around, and it's not about levitating or turning invisible or anything like that. So, but anyway, LeVay is talking about the elements used. He talks about desire being one of them, and says the Satanist performs his ritual to ensure the outcome of his desires, and he would not waste his time nor force of will on something so inconclusive as rolling a pencil off a table. Oh, I see. So LeVay, see, this is another kind of weird thing. Before this, LeVay is talking about this is here. Let me just say. LeVay says the only way that a magician could do tricks like moving objects with the mind would be to have a strong and emotional need to do it. Which implies he thinks that you can, like, move things with your mind and levitate stuff, which you can't do. That's not, if anyone could do that, they would be the most famous person in the world. We have enough iPhones with recording devices and things to, we could recreate. No one can do that. Now, that's not to mean that maybe at some time in the future, when we're highly conscious, maybe that could occur. But right now, no, that can't happen. And it's odd that LeVay is implying that could, if one emotionally, LeVay is basically saying, well, it's a waste of time because it requires so much emotion that it's waste. But like, it could happen if one, no, you can't, no, that's not how it works. Anyway, yeah, so LeVay says the amount of energy needed to levitate a teacup would be of a sufficient force to place an idea in a group of people's heads halfway across the earth, in turn motivating them in accordance with your will. So, see, I don't agree. This is kind of a silly way of, in my opinion, looking at magic. And it's a very odd way for LeVay to look at magic. I don't know why he thinks this. Unless he's just BSing, which maybe he is. I don't know. That's another thing you got to watch out for, is a lot of magicians are very manipulative. And LeVay clearly embraces manipulative magic. So you got to remember that as you read. This is why you got to be really careful with magic, because people who use magic sometimes are very manipulative. And so Satanists like LeVay clearly has no problem with manipulative tactics. So you have to be careful. Is that being actually used in his writings? So when he says that magic could make a cup levitate off the table, it's just too hard to do that. Like, it would just take too much effort. You could, get people halfway across the world to do your bidding instead of lifting that up. Like, does he actually believe that, or is he just like saying that for the book? I don't know, because it doesn't really fit very well with the rest of the satanic philosophy, which seems very atheistic and materialist, and to imply that you could do those types of things presupposes a metaphysical layer to reality. Anyway, it's a little weird. It's a little weird. So LeVay says the Satanist knows that even if you succeeded in levitating the teacup, it would be assumed that trickery was used anyway. Therefore, if the Satanist wants to float objects in midair, he uses wires, mirrors, or other devices and saves his force for himself, basically. Saying all gifted mediums and white light mystics practice pure and applied stage magic with their blindfolds and sealed envelopes, and any fairly competent stage magician, carnival worker, or entertainer can duplicate the same effect. So basically what LeVay is saying, I don't know, this is just weird to me. LeVay is saying, hey, levitating a teacup would be really hard to do. And if a Satanist were to levitate the teacup, he knows that people would just accuse him of trickery, or them of trickery. So what a Satanist would do is use a trick, like use wires or mirrors to make it look like he's levitating the teacup, to convince people. This is the logic behind it. To actually do it would require too much effort. But it could be beneficial if people think that you can, because then they'd think that you were powerful. So the Satanist would use a magician's illusion to make it look like one could levitate a teacup. It doesn't make very much sense. It's weird. It's weird. I don't know if LeVay actually believes this. Maybe he does. It's a little weird though. Anyway, desire, very much a real thing that affects ritual. Levitating, no. So desire is one element. LeVay says timing is another element. LeVay says in every successful situation, one of the most important ingredients is the proper timing. In the performance of a magic ritual, timing can mean success or failure. The best time to cast your spell or charm, hex, or curse is when your target is at his most receptive state. Receptivity to the will of the magician is assured when the recipient is as passive as possible. No matter how strong-willed one is, he is naturally passive while he is asleep. Therefore, the best time to throw your magical energy towards your target is when he or she sleeps. If a woman is the target for your spell, do not forget the importance of the menstrual cycle. If man were not dulled through his stifling evolutionary development, he would know, as an all-fours animal knows, when the female was most sexually inclined. So, LeVay says timing is important. Is timing important? It can be. But LeVay says that, like if you're trying to hex someone or curse someone or do a love spell on someone, and see, all this is very manipulative as well. Like cursing someone, hexing someone, doing a love spell. I don't know. Anyway, LeVay is saying, essentially, timing's important, which it can be, but his reasoning is you should do it when your target's will is the weakest, like when they're asleep. Or for women when they're having their menstrual cycle. Which I don't know if he's implying that is because they have less will when daydreaming or boredom, when they are, or just like when people are fertile. I don't know. Anyway, I think I don't necessarily think he's implying that women are weak at that point. He might be, but I don't think so. Could be. I don't know. But anyway, regardless, does that matter? Does it matter if, you got to wait till your target is sleeping, or you got to wait till they're having a menstrual cycle? The thing is no, it doesn't matter, but it can matter if that's important to you. So what I mean by that is, remember, all of this is about working with your unconscious mind. So in a objective sense, does it matter if the person that you're involving is asleep or not? No. But if for you, it makes the ritual seem more meaningful or more powerful, then it can enhance it. So symbolically, for example, if you're like, I'm going to do this spell when I know that they're asleep, could it have a greater effect? It could have a greater effect, but not because they're actually asleep, but because you have set aside this special time that has more importance for you, and thus you're increasing your emotion and importance and symbolic meaning attached to it. By the way, if you may have noticed, I'm not a huge fan of satanic magic. I think it's a little, look, I don't want to be, like I said, there's a lot of Satanists out there that I've met that are wonderful, fantastic people. I'm just not a huge fan. I'm not a huge fan of satanic magic. It seems a little childish to me, and not very effective. So by the way, if you want to hear me talk about other types of magic, like high magic, ceremonial magic, chaos magic, let me know in the comments, and we'll do videos about those, because you'll find that I think the ideas are very interesting. This kind of, I'm not a fan of this. But let's just continue just to see what LeVay has to say. So he's saying desire, timing, and then imagery. Anything which serves to intensify the emotions during a ritual will contribute to its success. Any drawing, painting, sculpture, writing, photograph, article of clothing, scent, sound, music, or contrived situation that can be incorporated into the ceremony will serve the sorcerer well. If you wish to enjoy sexual pleasures, so here we're getting into like sex spells again. If you want sexual pleasures with the one of your choice, you must create the situation you desire on paper, canvas, by the written word, etc., in an overstated way as possible as integral part of the ceremony. And yeah, so this I do agree with. This can be, imagery is powerful. Again, you're just reinforcing your subconscious. And if you want a certain thing to happen, a certain scenario to play out, then it makes you think of a scenario and take the time to draw it or write it down. Like if there's someone you're attracted to, well, you want to go out on a date with them, let's say. And so you would imagine the date in your mind and draw a picture about it. And this is just enforcing your psychology, and may drive you and nudge you to ask that person out, or, something along those lines. So yeah, imagery is a powerful reinforcer in the mind. This I agree with. LeVay says, if you have material desires, you must gaze upon images of them, surround yourself with the smells and sounds conducive to them, create a lodestone which will attract the situation or thing that you wish So yes, again, if you want, let's say, to be successful and gain money, yeah, you could do a ritual that say, where you're, let's say, involving coins in your ritual in some way. But this is not like law of attraction kind of stuff where it's just like, oh, it's just going to start coming to you. It's about priming your unconscious to realize that this is something that you want to achieve. And it helps reinforce that. And then okay. To ensure the destruction of an enemy, you must destroy them by proxy. They must be shot, stabbed, sickened, burned, smashed, drowned, or rent in the most vividly convincing manner. Okay, don't do that. So I think what LeVay is saying is like, draw a picture of this or create imagery surrounding this in some way. I don't condone this. Obviously don't literally harm someone, and don't metaphorically harm someone either. And this is why I'm not a super huge fan of Satan. I think it's very dangerous and irresponsible to be telling people to do this kind of thing. For one reason, just one out of many reasons, is if you're doing like curses like this, remember, like I said, magic is about you embedding commands in the unconscious. And remember how this can drive you to, get a raise at work if that means your unconscious thinks it's important to you. Well, what are you telling your unconscious is important to you here? If you're imagining someone specific dying in horrendous ways and you're imbuing that with a lot of anger and hatred and terror, etc., you're going to be screwing with your unconscious here and using a lot of very negative energy. And this could have a lot of negative consequences. So it could put you in a state of anxiety because you're using all those, terrifying things. It could prime you to perhaps like violent tendencies because your unconscious is being primed for that. And ultimately, this is going to harm you in the process in some way or another. So I am not a proponent of this sort of thing. If you want to like get revenge on someone, like they always say, living a good life is the best revenge. So instead of trying to harm someone psychologically, that's going to have negative consequences on you. So it's much better to do work that is geared towards enhancing yourself, fortifying yourself psychologically, creating conditions in which your life is improving, protecting yourself, forming psychological barriers against individuals who might be affecting you negatively, etc. That is much healthier. And like I said, I don't think this is super responsible. So hey, don't do this, okay? Don't harm people. Don't, not good. So, and here's an interesting one. LeVay says what is also necessary is the balance factor. And LeVay says the balance factor is an ingredient employed in the practice of ritual magic, which applies to the casting of lust and compassion rituals more than in the throwing of a curse. This ingredient is a small but extremely important one. So this factor, LeVay is saying, is very important for sex spells or love spells, not so much in, and compassion, doing something nice, doing positive things, not so much in the throwing of a curse. And so what is it? What is the balance factor? This is essentially being, having self-awareness of your capabilities, your capacities. And so let's see what he says, and then I'll explain it more. He says, LeVay says, are you a plain glamourless witch with oversized feet, nose, and ego, combined with an advanced case of acne, who is casting love spells to catch a handsome young movie star? Or are you a gross, lumpy, lewd-mouthed, snaggle-toothed loafer who is desirous of a luscious young stripper? And LeVay says, to be able to adjust one's wants to one's capabilities is a great talent, and too many people fail to realize that if they are unable to attain the maximum, a half a loaf can be better than none. The chronic loser is always the man who, having nothing, if unable to make $1 million, will reject any chance to make 50,000 with a disgruntled sneer. So essentially what LeVay is saying is be realistic about what you can achieve. He's saying if you are an ugly, stupid person, don't expect to be able to get a movie star. And this can apply. You know, he uses the examples associated with, trying to get a partner either in love with you or sexually. And he's basically saying that you have to be realistic about what you can achieve. And this applies to all manner of things. Like, for example, if you want to get wealth, like I said, a realistic way to do that may be a raise at work. But if you're like, oh, winning the lottery, that's very unlikely to happen. Or I'm in a week going to be a billionaire like, Bill Gates or whoever. And you have no knowledge of business. Like I'm going to be a successful entrepreneur, make millions and billions and do it in a year's time. But you have no business training whatsoever. Like clearly that's not going to happen. So LeVay is basically saying, be realistic about what you can achieve. He says, because the danger is in someone who wants $1 million but can't actually get it, turning down the opportunity where they could have got $50,000. Because, hey, 50,000 is better than nothing, essentially. And so, yeah, I think that still LeVay expresses this in a fairly crass way, not necessarily the way that I would express it necessarily. But yeah, this is an important factor. You should be realistic, but however, don't sell yourself short. I forget what philosopher said it. Might have been Marcus Aurelius. Not exactly sure. Someone in the comments tell me. Said it's better to aim high and miss by a little than to aim low and hit your mark. So basically, it's better to put your goals very high and not completely achieve them, miss it by a little bit, than set your goals really low and to achieve it, because then you're achieving much lower than what you could have. So I think that here, LeVay is right that this is important, but you have to be realistic with yourself, but also don't sell yourself short. And here's the problem, is that, and it's ironic that intelligent people usually sell themselves short, and people who aren't so intelligent are usually the ones who think that they're the best thing in the world and can achieve the highest, tops of the mountains, the highest pinnacle. They can reach the highest pinnacles. When this is the Dunning-Kruger effect, they're overestimating their capability. So basically, like, you got to be realistic. If you really aren't able to do something, be realistic with yourself and, take the steps to be able to do it, or realize that you need to set your sights lower, but don't sell yourself short. If you are an intelligent person, don't think like, oh, I could never do that because, no, you can't. Most of the time, you can if you put enough effort into it, if you put enough will into it. It's just a matter of how much effort, how much will you want to apply to it. And so, yes, be realistic, but make sure it applies both ways. Don't think you're going to, go win the lottery next week, but also don't be like, you know what? I'm just going to settle getting a raise at work, settle for getting a raise at work, when you actually have the capability of, let's say, starting your own business and being highly successful. So you see, it's not about, oh, I'm going to go get $1 million next week, but it's also not about settling. You want to be realistic, but in both directions, and ultimately go higher than you think you can, but not so high that it's just obviously unrealistic. And so LeVay says, one of the magician's greatest weapons is knowing himself, his talents, abilities, physical attractions and detractions, etc., and where, when, and with whom to utilize them. And yeah, I agree. Self-awareness is very important. Knowing yourself, knowing your talents, knowing your abilities, knowing what you're not good at. All of this is important in achieving your will. So ultimately what magic is about, you know, Aleister Crowley says magic is the art and science of conforming reality to one's will. Magic, or basically the idea here is you want something to happen, and magic is only as good as that which helps you make a certain thing occur. So if it does, great. If it doesn't, then it's not useful. If you're, you know, devoting your entire life to these excruciatingly detailed magic rituals that you don't really understand, and you're wasting all the time doing that, that time could have been much better focused on taking a business class and starting a business instead of dancing around a circle all day long. But if you realize what magic is really about and how it can be helpful, and if that helps you to have the motivation and desire to actually go out and take those business classes, then that's when it can help you. And so when we take a look here, I'm just laughing at some of these are funny, LeVay's statements. So if we take a look at this, LeVay is basically talking about ritual magic in terms of sex, love spells, in terms of compassion, and in terms of curses. And he gives these various elements that he says are necessary for achieving them. Now, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of satanic magic. It's much more aligned with practical magic or low magic, which there's nothing wrong with low magic, but it's done in a very like manipulative way, in a way that I think is very irresponsible and ultimately harmful. Not a huge fan. But if you would like to see videos, like I said, on other magical systems like ceremonial magic, magic of the Golden Dawn, Thelema, chaos magic, etc., let me know, because I'd be very happy to do videos about those. I think that there are some extremely interesting ideas, videos on alchemy, perhaps. Alchemy is very interesting. All these ideas can be very, very interesting. I'm just personally not a huge fan of the satanic interpretation of them. But tell me what you think. I want to know what you think. And hey, if you like the satanic interpretation, that's fine. As long as you're not hurting people, don't hurt anybody. But tell me in the comments, tell me what you think. I want to know. And I hope you enjoyed this video, my friend. There are a lot more videos. Check out my whole playlist on Satanism. And if you enjoy my work, remember to become a member here on YouTube. Helps out a lot. And check out my new book. Start with book number 1, which is, like I said, Neogenesis, Dawn of the New Mind. The link for that is in the description of this video. And you can follow me on Spotify as well. Go do that now. Thank you very much, my friends. And I want to give a big shout out to everyone who supports, especially Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela, DB, Nucelina, Christopher, Eon, Vanessa, and Dallas. Thank you very much.